Hello, and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we're diving into one of the most dramatic chapters of world history, the Opium Wars. This wasn't just about trade, but about power, profit, and the devastating consequences of addiction. We'll uncover how two wars in the 19th century reshaped China, boosted Britain's global influence, and left behind a legacy that still echoes today. Stay with us, because this story is full of twists, global rivalries, and lessons the world cannot afford to forget. In the twilight of the 18th century, China stood as a colossus of trade. Its silks, porcelain, and aromatic teas coveted across the globe. But beneath this veneer of prosperity, a storm was brewing. Britain, an empire on the rise, found itself caught in a web of desire for Chinese luxuries, yet struggled to offer anything of equal value in return. This imbalance would soon give birth to a crisis that would reshape nations and leave scars for generations to come. As British ships sailed eastward, laden with silver to quench their thirst for Chinese goods, a dangerous idea took root. In the opium fields of India, a British colony, they discovered a commodity that would tip the scales of trade in their favor. Little did they know, this decision would plunge two empires into conflict and addiction. This is the story of how greed, trade, and addiction changed the fate of nations. The global trade imbalance of the early 19th century was a ticking time bomb. China's vast exports of tea, a drink that had become nothing short of an obsession in British society, created a seemingly insatiable demand. Yet the Qing dynasty, confident in its superiority, saw little need for Western goods. They demanded payment in silver, a precious metal that began to flow out of British coffers at an alarming rate. As Britain's silver reserves dwindled, panic set in among the merchants of the East India Company. They needed a solution, a product that could reverse the tide of trade. Their answer lay in the poppy fields of India, where opium production was about to skyrocket. The rise of the opium trade was as swift as it was devastating. British ships, once filled with silver, now carried a far more insidious cargo. Despite official bans by the Chinese government, opium flooded into the country through a network of smugglers and corrupt officials. What began as a trickle soon became a torrent, as addiction spread like wildfire through all levels of Chinese society. The consequences were dire. Productivity plummeted as more and more Chinese citizens fell under the drug spell. Families were torn apart, and the very fabric of society began to fray. But perhaps most alarming to the Qing rulers was the economic impact. The silver that had once flowed into China now poured out, as addicts sold everything they had to feed their habit. As the crisis deepened, the Qing dynasty was forced to act. In a bold move, they appointed Commissioner Lin Zexu to tackle the problem head-on. Lin, a man of principle and determination, confiscated and destroyed vast quantities of opium. His actions culminated in a famous letter to Queen Victoria, appealing to her sense of morality and the destructive nature of the trade. But Lin's pleas fell on deaf ears. The British government, swayed by powerful merchant interests, defended the opium trade in the name of free markets and commerce. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through history. In 1839, the First Opium War erupted. British naval power, honed by centuries of maritime conflict, clashed with Chinese coastal defenses, ill-prepared for modern warfare. But this was more than a war over drugs. It was a battle for power, for trade rights, and for the future of China itself. The conflict ended in 1842 with the signing of the Treaty of Nanking, a document that would become synonymous with national humiliation for China. Hong Kong was ceded to Britain, and 5 ports were forcibly opened to foreign trade. The era of the unequal treaties had begun, but the appetite of Western powers was far from sated. Other nations, including France and the United States, soon demanded similar privileges. China found itself stripped of control over its own trade laws, forced to accept terms dictated by foreign governments. This period marked the beginning of what Chinese historians would later call the Century of Humiliation, a time of foreign domination and national decline that would shape China's worldview for generations to come. The Second Opium War, erupting in 1856, only deepened China's wounds. British and French forces, emboldened by their earlier victory, pushed further inland. The capture of Beijing in 1860 marked a new low, as Western troops looted and burned the magnificent old summer palace, an act of cultural destruction that still resonates in China today. The aftermath of these conflicts left China reeling. Millions of its citizens were trapped in the grip of addiction, their productivity and potential wasted. Corruption spread through the government, as officials, tempted by bribes, turned a blind eye to opium smuggling. Perhaps most galling was the system of extraterritoriality, which placed foreigners above Chinese law within China's own borders. The legacy of the Opium Wars extends far beyond the 19th century. The trauma of addiction left deep scars on Chinese society, while the humiliation of defeat accelerated the decline of the Qing dynasty. The rise of Western imperialism in Asia, fueled by these conflicts, would reshape the balance of power in the region for decades to come. Even today, the memory of the Opium Wars casts a long shadow over China's approach to foreign relations and its fierce defense of national sovereignty. The desire to never again be vulnerable to foreign exploitation remains a powerful force in Chinese politics and culture. As we reflect on this dark chapter of history, we are reminded of the complex interplay between trade, power, and human suffering. The Opium Wars were not simply about drugs, but about the clash of empires, the pursuit of profit at any cost, and the struggle for national dignity in the face of overwhelming force. The story of the Opium Wars serves as a stark warning of how far nations will go when profit outweighs humanity. It is a reminder that the consequences of our actions can echo through generations, shaping the world in ways we might never have imagined. As we face the global challenges of our own time, the lessons of this conflict remain as relevant as ever, urging us to consider the true cost of our choices and the long-term impact of our pursuit of wealth and power.